Welcome to Future Skills Ireland podcast. I'm Shauna Dunlop, the Director of Future Skills Needs in Solace, the further education and training authority in Ireland. I'm delighted to be bringing this new podcast to Ireland to give us an opportunity to bring real conversations about the skills that really matter, to hear about the skills that other people have found important to them in terms of their own careers and their own journeys, as well as dig into and find out what they think about what the future is really for skills. All with the singular purpose of starting a new national conversation on skills across the country. I'm delighted to be joined today by my special guest, Bernadette Walsh, who is an absolute ambassador in terms of career guidance. Not only does Bernadette help prepare all our future career guidance counsellors across the country in terms of her work in Maynooth University, she also plays a huge leadership role in terms of careersportal.ie, which many people will know in terms of trying to find out information about career guidance. And she also has a real passion for social justice. You are very welcome, Bernadette.
Thanks, Shauna. It's great to be here. Delighted with the opportunity. So thanks for having me.
So I'll maybe just give you a chance to maybe tell us a little bit just about the role that you have and the different pieces of work that you're doing at the moment and, you know, how you're bringing your own skills into some of those areas.
Okay. Yeah, well, I suppose you're right. I operate between two kind of hats mainly. My work with Careers Portal, I'm there about 14 years. And I've also been working in the Department of Adult and Community Education at Maynooth University as well for just about 12 years now. So I'm very lucky that I am involved in the training of guidance counsellors. So I get to meet people as they're starting out on their journey and like that, with that passion for guidance and just supporting people to move forward in a positive way in their life, whatever that may look like. And I also, in Careers Portal then, I get to meet them when they're fully fledged and I get to work across the sectors. So from post-primary right through to FET, you know, into higher education, with job seekers, with those supporting job seekers. So I'm very lucky that I kind of get a chance to work with people across the kind of public employment services, education and guidance. So that's where I'm at now, and really enjoying the diverse nature of what I do. It's busy, but that's it's privileged work is what I feel. I think it's really important that, you know, when you are in a role of either education or guidance, that it is a privileged position to be in.
And I'm sure lots of the people that you work with, you know, they benefit from your experience and your real interest and passion in that area. And as you say, like, guidance, you know, it's not just for one particular area. It's not just for school. Yeah. It's not just for maybe where people maybe think, oh, it's time I needed to go and get guidance. It's something that's actually really part of our overall society, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think there's a misconception sometimes, you know, when we think of guidance, you know, people will automatically maybe think of, you know, school. But as you say, you know, education is lifelong and so is guidance. And I think now more than ever, people really need guidance. Particularly, there are so many pathways, which is fantastic. But, you know, it can be very overwhelming to somebody trying to navigate those different routes. And then we have so many diverse ways in through to higher education. You know, we've the new National Territory Office and those degree it's fabulous. So, but I think that, you know, for maybe even somebody thinking of upskilling, if we're talking about skills, you know, very often, you know, somebody being able to kind of tease out and support you to look at what's available in your location, in your area, what's feasible for you. You know, you may have family and lots of things to juggle. Yeah. So guidance is extremely important at various transitions of people's lives.
Yeah. We've all been there, you know, we've all been at a point, whether in school, maybe a lot of people listening, you know, they've had their family and they're thinking about going back into work, or they're thinking about doing a course, or things have changed in their jobs, or they've retired and they're deciding, well, what am I going to do now? So like we've all been at a point in time, everyone, where you've been in need of guidance or you've looked for guidance. And of course, not everyone has had maybe a hugely positive experience.
Absolutely.
And that's probably some of the challenges that you face. And certainly in the role that you have, where you're actually leading the next generation of guidance counsellors that are coming into the country. So like, do you have, I'm sure that comes up, like, do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, it can come up at various times. I think certainly now, particularly with the Department of Education, there's a range of competencies that a qualified guidance counsellor needs to possess now.
Yes.
And it's very much person-centred and holistic. And, guidance counsellors now are in constant supervision. They're very accountable in their role. And there's certain, as I say, things in place to ensure good quality of service. And I've met so many dynamic guidance counsellors, particularly in the adult guidance sector, who are really experienced and just salt of the earth people who really want to see people move forward in a positive light, in a positive way. But you're right. I mean, when I look even on my own career path, it's been turns and twists. And I started out in business.
Okay.
My first job was in an insurance company, and I was completely useless with figures. So, but it's funny because I often say to students or even people that I meet, you bring yourself to your work. So it's funny how, and even in career development theory, they talk about seeking out ways that you can be yourself in your work, which is a lovely way to look at it. And when I look back on my own journey, I was only very young at the time, maybe 20. They soon kind of copped on to the fact that I seemed to be able to interact well with people. So I found myself doing less of the financial stuff and the figures and all of the stuff that I wasn't really good at, and dealing suddenly with complaints. So
which is not an area that everyone wants to move into.
No, it wasn't. Well, I didn't stay there very long as a result. But it's funny that if we talk about skills, how sometimes we don't see. They're invisible to us, but people can see the skills that we possess or the qualities that we have. And so I think very often when I even look back at my own journey, I didn't think that they were skills. I just thought they were part of who I was, maybe, or my personality. And yes, that's true to an extent, but actually that how they can be valuable in the workplace. So I think the whole conversation around skills and people being able to recognise what they already have. In guidance, we talk about, I kind of talk about to people about doing a little stock take on what you have, because I find, particularly in my role and working with people of all ages, from subject choice right up to, as you mentioned, retirement, that people don't think of skills in the context of maybe naturally what they're good at, or they may only view them as, if I wasn't paid for that particular, it's not a skill. So they become, in a way, it's something that's really important for people to understand, that, skills are holistic. They're personal, they're task skills, they're interpersonal skills. And actually in Careers Portal, what we do quite well is we really encourage young people from the get-go, from first year in school. We now have a programme, a guidance programme, and we also have resources on the site from first year, so that students are beginning to tune into, well, what skills do I have? So what do you already have in your bag, the stock take? Because I find people will focus in on what they don't have, or their deficits or the gaps. So I think that's one of the things that I find most of the time with people is really trying to build their confidence around what they do have.
Yeah.
Is the key.
Yeah.
You know,
and building that awareness, that self-awareness almost.
That's
you know,
exactly it.
And you talk about characteristics and skills, and I think we all have a little bit of that. You know, but sometimes maybe you don't identify that.
Yeah.
You know, a personality trait that you have or something that's really powerful that you have is actually potentially a very powerful skill.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
I mean, I think your approach, like that approach, I think is so important, you know, for so many people, especially with a range of areas, you know, and the range of people and the backgrounds that they're coming to you with. But I suppose that what's interesting, Bernadette, then is what skills do you think that you have that's allowing you to kind of be able to deliver that, you know, or to see that, you know, to have that vision that people need to build their own self-awareness, you know, to find their kind of toolkit, you know, or do their stock take, as you say. Like, what skills do you think that you have that you feel is important to all of that?
I think having empathy for other people, or just that awareness of others. I think I've always kind of had that, and I've hopefully developed that over the years. And I think, you know, I love learning. I love learning about people. My husband.
Everyone in this is a lover of learning.
You know. Now my husband would say, just you're nosy, but but I do. I'm very interested in other people. I love to hear their story.
Yes.
And I really enjoy that. And people are dynamic and everyone's so unique. So I think that I'm quite good at tuning in and maybe having empathy for people's situation. And you talk about, you know, social justice, and I do have a real graw for trying to support the underdog, and I suppose that very much comes from growing up in a disadvantaged working class area, and coming from that kind of intergenerational maybe poverty or working class background. So I think that would be probably a skill that I possess is just being able to really tune into that individual person. I also love working with groups though, so I think groups are fantastic, and groups of people, when they come together in any shape or form, really bring each other along. So they bring out each other's skills and the best in each other. You know, when it's facilitated and held in a very respectful way. And I think you know, thinking about coming here today to chat to you, what I realised, what I also really love and I find is a skill, is that ability to collaborate. So to collaborate with others, to work with others. In fact, when I look at all of the projects that I'm involved in, they all need some kind of collaborative process. You know, the new guidance programs that we've developed, it's all about working with others to try and address a need. And I suppose that stems back from my time in, you know, community education, community development. That's all the principles that underpin good community development are all about working in collaboration. So I think, you know, we might call it the skill of teamwork, but actually collaboration goes a step further than teamwork.
It does.
Collaboration, you know, very often it needs innovation. And that would be another kind of a skill that I would feel. I like to be on the edge. I like to be I like to be, you know, in the margins, maybe coming from the margins. And I like looking at new ways of doing things that bring out the best in people. That's really my bottom line, you know.
You clearly really enjoy, I think, what you do as well. And certainly, you know, bringing together diverse, you know, groups, you know, people of different backgrounds, you know, that creating a community and that creating a connection is obviously something, you know, that you're able to do. And I mean, I think that's hugely important, because guidance, I think, and the role of guidance, I think we maybe haven't even fully realised its full potential yet. You know, like, I mean, I've been involved with yourself in the department and other pieces of work on guidance, and I do think it's, you know, it's always talked about, And we know it's hugely important. But I do feel that we are at a bit of a moment actually with guidance where we are coming together in that connected space, you know, in a better way maybe, because as the world changes and, you know, the jobs change and there is so much to think about, I think, in terms of the future skills and the conversation we're having. I think guidance, you know, guidance has so much to offer and so much to deliver. And obviously you're seeing some of the results of that. But I do think it's an area all by itself that's in our future skills landscape.
And it does, and it permeates, you know, every sector, and you know, as you say, people need it even when they're in jobs, you know, and they're looking at ways maybe to further develop and so on. And, you know, sometimes, you know, there's a lot of informal guidance that can happen as well outside of the qualified practitioner. And some people are just natural leaders, and other people will seek out guidance from them, you know, and that whole idea of mentorship, I think, is really important as well within the workplace, particularly around skills development. Too. So there's
a lot of exciting things I think are happening, and there's a lot to build on. You know, a lot of the success. And I wanted to sort of touch on then, like some of the future skills space and some of the work that actually that you do in Careers Portal with some of the information that we produce in Solace actually. So I have to commend you on this, because we just published our 20th National Skills Bulletin back in November. Hard to believe it's gone for 20 years. Wow. We're building on that obviously as we move towards the establishment of a National Skills Observatory for Ireland. But I mean, for a significant period of time, you've been able to take our skills bulletin, which is a lengthy document. It's fair to say it's a lengthy document, but it has huge amounts of information in there. We look at, 200 different types of jobs and occupations. We drill down into maybe what it's like to work in the construction sector, how, what's the gender there, what qualifications do you need. But you've been able to take that, Bernadette, into Careers Portal and really make that available and accessible to so many different people. So I mean, how have you felt about that yourself?
Yeah, I suppose one of the the pieces that's really important for anybody needing or providing guidance, is to try and understand the labour market.
Yes.
And, between the expert group on future skills needs and the work of Solace, there's a lot of really good data that's collected.
Yes.
And they're published in really comprehensive, detailed reports. And I suppose time is of the essence now for whether you're a practitioner or you're a job seeker. So what we try to do and what we're mindful of is breaking that down into digestible pieces. Now, Careers Portal was launched back in 2008, and it was in response to a report by the expert group on future skills needs.
Oh, there we go.
Who recommended that Ireland should have a central portal. So they recognised there was lots of careers information out there, but it was fragmented, and therefore people could get very overwhelmed and lost. So what the portal does is it pulls together a lot of careers and educational information into one place, and we'll always signpost people back. So we'll always signpost back to your overall reports.
Yes.
We integrate all of them in. We have a whole labour market area on the site.
Yes.
So what we do is, so back in 2014, you might remember Career Directions. So Career Directions was a FÁS occupational database.
Yes.
So that disbanded and we took it over, and we had our own occupational database, but we grew that then. So at the moment we have 1,150 occupations profiled on all the skills needed, the knowledge needed, a typical day.
It's a huge resource for anybody, really, and looking to see some of that information.
Yeah, it's really important, right from, as I say, even in school, right up, because even from school they have to do what's called a career investigation.
Okay.
In junior cycle, in TY, it's huge because it's based around work experience. And then into the FET sector, how important work experience
immensely.
all the time.
Yeah, right across the education and training boards, all of them, yes.
So for example, what we'll do really well as well in each occupation is we will signpost people to live jobs, but we'll also break down the percentages of people working in the jobs in Ireland, if it's an area of growth or if it's a job in demand. So based on the November 2024 skills bulletin, we now have 56 jobs in demand highlighted on the site.
There you go.
So we make that very clear for the job seeker, for the practitioner, for anybody looking to upskill. And it's really about, making that information very quickly and clearly available. And we'll also we profiled the 33 most prominent sectors in the Irish economy. And again, if you go into those, that's like the aerial view. You can look at all the related occupations, the related, if there's apprenticeships in those sectors, which is, again, I know we've 91 profiled.
Every day.
and they're growing every day, which is fantastic as well. And then all of the different further and higher educational courses as well, and the live jobs in each sector. But one of the things then, again, that we pull in is the skills. So skills permeate everything. So what are the most renowned or the most important skills that employers want in terms of their sector? So that information is it's the only source of information that's available in Ireland in a comprehensive, combined way. So 33 sectors, 1,150 jobs, 91 apprenticeships. And then being able to pull in all the labour market information from those brilliant reports that you publish in a digestible way.
And I think, that is an amazing resource that you are developing, delivering, leading, really, because, that is a way of using the information that I think we need to build on across the country, actually. So as we move towards the National Skills Observatory idea, I think we will look to you actually, for learning and, how we can continue to build on.
And how we can maybe even do it better and look for ways.
Absolutely. Building that connection and building that community. So guidance is a key part, of the actual overall future skills aspect of a national response, really.
And also, like, we send out a newsletter that goes to over 4,000 practitioners. And
I get your newsletter? I'm not your practitioner, but I get the newsletter.
You are. And our community. And I suppose one of the key stories that only went out yesterday was about green skills. And
the new information we have on green skills.
So that was a news story that even went into the newsletter that was sent to thousands of people. So we're not just highlighting it internally in the site, we're communicating those messages, be it apprenticeships, new courses that are running through the National Territory Office and so on. And that story that was out there as well. And I think it was Andrew Brownlee that was mentioned in that particular news story.
Yes, he broke the news. I think he broke the news on the latest report on green skills.
Which is really, when you think about skills for the future and you look at, 75% of jobs will have some kind of need and the importance of that whole space. And then the importance of digital literacy as well. And, there's so many skills for the future. And I think from my perspective as well, there's so much emphasis on artificial intelligence. That, people get very fearful that they're going to be replaced, where actually the skills that they're going to need will probably just change. But I think it's really important that people understand how important they are as people, that AI can never replace that human interaction. Or that kind of need for creativity and innovation and collaboration that we talked about. All those things AI can't really do for us, you know?
And that's a very important point, because we know all of the advantages that it can bring, and we are seeing some of that. But when we think about skills, we have to remember that people are actually at the heart of that. It is people who get skills, it's people who choose skills, it's people who are curious, about skills. And if we lose the people part, which sometimes is what happens, really, we've lost the run of ourselves in some ways.
That's
because, skills are really about people. And as you say, the human skills, the transversal skills. And I mean, you're very familiar with the Bernadette because you circulate this information out and people engage with it. But even in our last report that we did on job vacancies, and we do a lot of this now, again, like technology helps us do this. So we can look at millions of job vacancies that are posted and actually pull out, well, what are the skills that employers are actually looking for? And what we're discovering is this greater and greater increase on the transversal side. Yes,
absolutely.
And it's about people who can adapt to change, people who can create, people who can work collaboratively, people who are good in teamwork, So like it's a massive component of every job vacancy that we're seeing, everywhere actually, but particularly in Ireland. So like, I suppose thinking in that kind of future skills space, and we recognise fully, and I'm totally with you on terms of how we continue to embed guidance and we deliver on that for particularly the people who need it most. But in the future skills landscape of Ireland in general, like what do you think maybe are, and you've mentioned some of them already, but like maybe the one or two kind of key areas that you think are of crucial importance for Ireland for the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, I'd go back to the even before that is where people begin to recognise their unique set of skills.
Okay, yes.
Because I do see the generic ones are the ones that we will definitely be needed across the sectors, be it creativity, innovation.
Yes.
That human relational aspect of being able to work with people is hugely important.
Yes.
And so I do think, I'll go back to the point that I made about people really being able to think about their value in the workplace or their value in the education system, their value in society, because, work at the end of the day is such a big part of people's identity as well. And we're working longer. And we're changing jobs more. So being able to be able to cope with change is a huge thing.
Yes.
In our school program as well, we talk a lot about change is constant. And change is difficult for people.
It is. It is.
So I do think, it's so important that people recognise their own value first and foremost. They recognise themselves as a unique individual that may not have the skills that somebody else has, maybe naturally or has developed, but nonetheless they have value and they're good at what they're good at.
Yes.
And that can be applied in a range of ways within their community, within their work, and so on. And they can grow and they can develop.
Yes.
But I think more so now than ever, it's so important that people can build their confidence around their identity. And that will only, result in them in developing and growing, and being able to bring those with them wherever they go, be it work or in their life. So I think it's a changing world. I think it can be difficult for people. People are struggling in all sorts of ways with cost of living, and we're still we still have the remnants of COVID.
Of course.
And people are working in a hybrid way. They're maybe very challenging. Maybe they're feeling quite isolated. And we are human connectors. So I think recognising ways of bringing people together, not just in a virtual space, which is great. Zoom is great.
Some
now.
Advantages to
there
it.
Is. I used to travel the country up and down, with training and workshops and all of that. Now we can do a lot of that on Zoom. But I do think that people being their identity, their value in the world is really important. And the skills, a lot of them can be learned. as well. You know, even though people might be fearful around technology and so on.
Don't be afraid to learn.
You can, you know, and we'll all make mistakes.
Of course.
You know,
that's part of life.
That's part of life, and failure is part of success, you know.
Absolutely.
So, I think it's really important for me in the work that I do, is that the person recognises their own value first and foremost, and the skills that they already have, and the skills that they can learn.
Yeah. I think that's, that's great insight, and it's usually important. And I think sometimes we almost lose sight of something so fundamental as that, are people confident? Do they value themselves? Are they aware of who they are and what they can already achieve? And I think that's a fundamental point that we have to remember, actually. And that whole concept of self-efficacy, really, where people have a sense of value about themselves. And, in some of the discussions we've had, today, like we've been talking about philosophy, and we've been talking about, creating a culture and not being stuck in norms. But a lot of it comes back to just us as individuals, and as people, and that self-efficacy. And probably nowhere is that so important as for the people who are most vulnerable in our society, actually, and trying to build that sense of worth, or that sense of realization. And I know you do a huge amount of work in that space as well, in terms of reaching out to the people who, particularly young people maybe, who do find themselves in a place where it will be difficult to find that. And I do think that's something that ourselves in Solace, and as a connected society in general, we need to continue to think about that and make sure that we're getting information and support and, the right interventions where we can, to make sure people can get to the point where they can get guidance for what they would like to do next.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think, being able to support somebody to make a change, a positive change, move forward is only going to, benefit community, society in general.
Yes.
And sometimes, we've been based in a project in Oberstown now for 4 years called the Steps Plus project. And I think, again, it's trying to change people's maybe negative perception on themselves, or young people in particular, when they do make mistakes, and there's victims involved as well, just to say that. But I do think that if we create an environment for positive change for people, through helping them to see their potential outside of maybe their circumstances, be it where they live, where they come from, the challenges that maybe they faced, I think that can only benefit everybody in society.
Absolutely. So I know we could talk all day here. We've lots of shared interests, and there's so many things, I think, to think about and to try to reflect on and think about for the future. But I do want to give you the last word, Bernadette, first of all, and make sure that you have a chance to contribute to this. So I've talked about the fact that our podcasts are really a mechanism in some ways to really start a new national conversation on skills. And you've given us lots of important insights and things to think about, and those kind of key areas that I think we agree that we need to focus on for the future. But do you have kind of anything you want to maybe finish on? It could be a reflection, or, it could be a call to action, for that national conversation on skills that we think is underway.
Well, I want to thank you for organising the conversation, because I think it's really important. And particularly because I know you've had a range of speakers on, it's really good to connect people in as stakeholders, because we're all working with the same vision in mind,
True.
I think my call to action would be, on Careers Portal, we have a database at the moment, a work experience database.
Yes.
And work experience is fundamental and crucial for people of all ages, you know, very often to access, you know, various educational employment pathways, but also to build their skills.
Yes.
And we've a competition that we run within second level every year. But I think acquiring skills through work experience is so fundamentally important, but not everybody has the chance.
Of course.
So social capital is a huge barrier for people, you know, they can't access meaningful work experience. So at the moment on Careers Portal, we have 250 employers that are listed across the sectors that offer work experience opportunities for young people, but for adults as well, particularly in the FET sector. So I would invite, you know, any employers listening that have opportunities, because without those opportunities, young people and adults, you know, don't really get an chance to actually try out, learn new skills, develop their skills. So I think in terms of the conversation today, I think it's great to join the dots, and if that was continued in going forward, that we look at more creative and innovative ways to bring all the really good work together. So thanks for the opportunity to come here, and for the other speakers, I'm sure as well, to begin to join the dots. So no, thank you so much. And I'm sure there will be employers who will be interested in that, you know, and being part of that experience, because it's win-win, really, isn't it? You know? and it's about, you know, bringing together industry, you know, people, guidance, education, and we're all you know, I suppose working from the same vision anyway. And, you know, for people to access meaningful, and I think that's the important bit here, is it's a meaningful experience based on their interests, their values, the skills that they already have. Of course, is really important.
Of course. Well, thank you so much, Bernadette, for joining me and for all the work that you do, and the amount of people, no doubt, that you have supported and helped to make countless other differences, you know, as people have helped other people, you know, on their guidance journey. So thank you so much for all that you do, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for the opportunity.